Yesterday we came here, we stand in line for 1 hour, and the police said, oh, you go home, tomorrow come 8 o'clock, you will be fine. So we come today and we are standing here, then they are saying now only 65 and up.
That was the scene at a Miami area vaccination site on Saturday, where officials responded to the low turnout by vaccinating everybody in line. But that was not the case yesterday, when the same spot was overwhelmed and forced to revert back to state age requirements for people 65 years and up. Meanwhile, Governor Ron DeSantis is facing allegations of vaccine favoritism. Last Thursday, we told you about the Miami Herald report that found residents living in a wealthy gated enclave in the Florida Keys received the coronavirus vaccine, while the rest of the state is still struggling to get a first dose. A newsletter obtained by the Herald found that nearly all of the residents aged 65 and older living at the Ocean Reef Club had been vaccinated by mid-January. The Herald notes that the area is home to, quote, many wealthy donors to the Florida Republican Party and GOP candidates, including Governor Ron DeSantis. The spokesperson for DeSantis told the Herald that the governor was not involved in selecting the Ocean Reef Club for the the Ocean Reef Club for it's a really nice place, but it might not be the first place I would go for vaccines. But he said he was responsible for choosing it as an early vaccine distribution site, but didn't explain how the club obtained so many doses ahead of time. At the hospital, county contradict those claims, saying the distribution was authorized by the state. NBC News reached out to the governor's office for comment, but didn't hear back. Some officials in the state have called for an FBI investigation of the matter, including our next guest, Florida Commissioner of Agriculture and Consumer Services, Democrat NIKKI FREID joins us now. Also with us, State Attorney for Palm Beach County, Dave Ehrenberg. Also, MSNBC political analyst, Fernand Armandi. Thank you all so much for being with us. NIKKI, let me start with you. I was kind of chuckling because for people that aren't from Florida or don't know Florida, Ocean Reef Club, that's like one of the most elite spots in the entire state of Florida. And what a coincidence that it was they somehow, those extraordinarily wealthy Republican donors down there got a shot at the vaccine before most other Floridians.
Yeah, well, first of all, good morning, Joe. It's good to start my morning with my favorite people from Florida. But you're absolutely right. You know, and we've seen what's happening across the state of Florida. And this is just the last of the incidences. We saw pop-up sites both in Charlotte County and Manatee County, which are very exclusive zip codes for just those areas. Wealthy donors in those two communities as well, giving money to both Governor DeSantis and Republican Party. And so these are fact patterns that are consistent. And as a past public defender, I've seen fact patterns up close and personal. And when there's smoke, there's typically fire. And if this isn't public corruption on its face, I truly don't know what is.
Jonathan Lemire is with us from the AP and has a question. Jonathan.
So Dave Ehrenberg, good morning. Good to see you. Walk us through some just the legal questions surrounding this. You know, what sort of investigation could be launched? What sort of penalties could be paid? You know, we're obviously in a new frontier here. We haven't had a mass vaccination effort like this in decades upon decades. You know, what sort of laws are on the books? What can people do to make sure this is done equitably?
Good morning, Jonathan. One of the problems is that states have a lot of discretion when it comes to vaccine distribution. And Florida does not even have a detailed plan for distribution. And that's the way Governor DeSantis wants it, because it gives him the legal leeway to play favorites, to put vaccines in certain communities over others. That in itself is not a crime because he set those rules up. What would make it a crime is if it became bribery. But to get to bribery, you would need a direct quid pro quo. You need to directly tie the campaign contribution to the vaccine. You would also need to show that the governor had firsthand knowledge of such an alleged scheme. It's not enough that wealthy donors got access to the vaccines. And the longer in time between the donation and the vaccine, the harder it is to prosecute. It's not impossible, though. You would need to get a whistleblower, maybe a donor who wants to cooperate with the investigators, maybe a paper trail. But absent that, it's an uphill climb. This clearly smells bad. I agree with Nikki. There should be a further investigation. But as Reverend Al likes to say, there's a difference between crime and slime. And not everything that is slimy is crimey. And so you need to get more. You currently don't have that evidence of a direct quid pro quo. And absent that, the best tribunal for this right now would be the court of public opinion.
Yeah, you need an email, it seems to me, a text, smoking gun for that quid pro quo. But Fernand, politically, it seems to me it's probably will be the biggest challenge for Ron DeSantis, maybe in the next campaign.
Oh, no doubt, Joe. And as you said, I mean, every observer here in Florida finds it hard not to laugh when talking about this because the specter of bad faith hangs over Governor DeSantis when it comes to this vaccine distribution process. And if we take stock, his political party is doing him no favors. If you think about it, over the coming weeks, the vast majority of Americans are going to receive a $1,400 stimulus check and this life-saving vaccine from primarily the federal government, at least as perceptions go. And the fact that the Democratic Party were the authors of this legislation and really a lot of the efforts to get the vaccine in the hands of hundreds of millions of Americans, that does not do anything to help Ron DeSantis' perceptions here. Also, can't forget, Florida now is the front line for Trumpism, as you know and as everybody watching knows. So DeSantis is on a short leash because anything he might try and do to maybe try politically to take advantageous steps for vaccine distribution are going to be undercut by the man in Palm Beach County at Mar-a-Lago at any moment, maybe pulling him back on the reins a little bit. So it's a difficult dynamic here in Florida. And these stories and reports, as the Herald talked about, as Aaron Berg and Commissioner FREID mentioned as well, make it that much harder for that good faith to be built, which is what undermines a lot of these folks here in the state.
Commissioner Katty Kay's with us and has a question for you. Katty.
Yeah, Commissioner, the idea that this has to be kind of litigated in the court of public opinion, or that might be the most effective form of litigation, that's not going to be here for a while in the case of Ron DeSantis because he's just been elected. So what are the next steps in terms of any investigation, potential legal fallout for him?
Yeah, so we have contacted the FBI and have given them our factual information that we know. And the problem with these vaccines overall, and going back to public opinion, that because of the fact that there has not been a clear plan here in the state of Florida, that right now 50% of the vaccines have gone to white American arms, where white Floridians arms, where 11% is in Hispanic and 5.9% is in Black Floridians. So again, going back to public opinion, that you can see that because the fact that the vaccines have been gone to these donor locations and seeing some of the wealthiers. And then we even had it first when people were coming into our state that were on these boards of hospitals and wealthy donors from outside the state of Florida. So the next step is to continue to elevate these issues, to make sure the public understands what is happening, that this is corruption, even if there's not, if the FBI finds that there's no criminal activity, it is going to go to public opinion. He's back up for re-election here as governor in 2022. And the people now are well aware that this is pay-to-play politics in the state of Florida and really, quite frankly, public corruption at its worst.
Okay, Commissioner, thank you. David and Fernand, thank you as well. We're going to leave that conversation right there. We'll be back with more on Morning Joe. Stay with us.